Very good morning to all of you. Okay, thanks for joining this particular session in which Conneqt Business Solutions Digital Transformation arm, Conneqt Digital, we are trying to showcase our point of view in terms of applicability of low-code application platform for total experience transformation for BFSA segment in particular. Yeah. So basically here we will cover BFSI market challenges, pre and post pandemic, okay, the perennial issues BFSI is trying to address. Then low code value proposition, by virtue of which we will be able to address most of these problems in a very dynamic way. Then of course, one of the premier low code application platform OutSystems, my colleague, solutions head from OutSystems, Mr. Krishna, will cover the finer nuances and point of views from the OutSystems implementations perspective, and of course BFSI use cases, okay, which are more predominantly being addressed by most of the institutions using OutSystem based low code application platforms also will be covered. Yeah. So here, market challenges especially faced in the BFSI industry. Of course, post pandemic, some of the scenarios are quite prevalent, but pre pandemic also. Okay, the most perennial issues all the CXOs are trying to address in BFSI segment only is the shrinking revenue and growing in non-performing asset ratios. As per the Financial Stability Report, RBI, released in last July for FY22, the gross NPA ratio will tend to increase from 9.8 to around 11.22%. And post-pandemic scenario, the kind of financial imbalance, stability criteria, etc., have contributed to that. But all this pointing towards putting more governance, risk, compliance aspects, plus more prudence in terms of allocating assets, okay, loans, equity, so on and so forth for the possible clientele. Then the rising customer expectations. Of course, every customer, okay, tends to think that all the banking products, non-banking financial services product, insurance product, etc., is tailor-made for them. So some sort of differentiation they expect from all these products. How to satisfy them? This is an era of hyper-personalization. Okay, the one-to-one mapping and giving the feeling to customer that it's tailor-made for them, irrespective of the nature of the product. That's quite important. Okay, this is the scenario which all the organizations, BFSI segment, has to address so as to have utmost customer satisfaction. Then shrinking product needs, as already mentioned, being an era of hyper-personalization, every service, every banking, non-banking, insurance product, etc., need to create some sort of a differentiation to address the varied heterogeneous needs of all the customers. So this have been an issue before as well as post-pandemic scenario. The changing customer behavior. In fact, one study says more than 74% of expected outcomes are being seen at the omni-channel level, okay, especially through mobile by customers. Then tightening regulations and control, etc. See, one figure of approximately around $375 billion have been spent, okay, by way of fines since the 2008 Lehman Gate. Okay, so that showcases the ever focusing aspect of tightening regulations, controls, so on and so forth. Okay, declining business health. More than 45% of the corporate as well as fintech solutions, okay, worldwide shows declining okay, profits. The trend have been on an uphill post the pandemic scenario. The changing dynamics of the workforce. Here, the scenario is that the current workforce, the millennials, okay, they, frankly speaking, don't have the time or energy to just have focused the kind of development efforts in the basic greenfield platforms, whether it is Java, .NET, all those kind of things. Okay, they envisage okay some sort of a jovial learning as far as creating these computer assets. There comes the significance of this kind of low-code platforms we see. Thriving fintech, as we are aware, 30% of expected revenue loss of traditional trading over phone to new digital platforms. One of the items. See, non-banking financial services are catching up with all the innovative products, so on and so forth. It all showcases the thriving fintech and the traditional banking core aspects. Okay, has to okay be in line with the expectations the new age the customers are having. And tactical automation initiatives at CXO level. See, automation initiatives, they get into okay, without having an end goal in mind with the definite time constraints, etc. So here come the need for having a very okay, dedicated or focused digital strategy to address all these things. As mentioned, all those issues, okay, to an extent, okay, in a practically possible way, we can address by having a coherent business strategy. Okay, we are platform architecture for agility. See, all the existing investments on IT resources has to be protected. So the kind of enterprise architecture we will do, by virtue of which most of the challenges we have just mentioned can be addressed by way of creating dynamic application scenarios, need to have a very flexible platform architecture agility. Okay, process automation end to end has to be arrived at or has to be done within no time. Okay, the minimum turnaround time, I will say. Then every point in time during that application automation life cycle, data is the essence, data is the key. So that by way of virtualization, some sort of insights we are okay wanting to get into the data being generated by virtue of umpteen millions of transactions. Okay, that data should be there at fingertip, okay, in order to make predictive analytics as well as intelligent decision making at any point in time. So that aspect we have to consider. Customer experience transformation, I just touched upon. See, the total experience transformation, okay, Gardeners of the world have come up in at least the last 1+ years. See, not only the customer experience, equally important is the employee experience to be up to the mark, so that employees are empowered, they will be able to provide the ultimate customer experience. Okay, that clubbed with the multi experience, which is the basic tenet nowadays. Everyone expects omni-channel customer experience with all the best practices of UX UI transformation. That is the total experience transformation we are talking about. There should be some platform which will be able to achieve this in a dynamic mode for all the customers. That's a scenario. Legacy modernization comes into picture, where protection of all the existing investments. That's the golden kind of a tenant every CXO will be working on. The investments of the past need to be protected as far as possible. So what can be a platform? What can be a magic wand which will help us to achieve all those things? Okay, by virtue of adopting not multiple platforms, a set of platforms, tool platforms, best practices, design constraints, so on and so forth. There comes the significance of low-code application platforms. Yeah. So here, all these end-to-end business processes we are talking about, many times we call it as dynamic case management. Okay, business processes, irrespective of domains across BFSI, spanning across multiple business days, are having some limited start and end timing, so on and so forth. Domain agnostic processes. How we will be able to connect existing systems of record, the tens of millions of trillions of data related to all the services we are providing, as well as the transaction data being maintained, generated, okay, being put in various sources of data platform. How those systems of record can be real-time accessed or in a batch mode accessed, so as to get them connected with the real-time customer interactions. That is the essence of all these applications we talk about. It's called dynamic case management. So the engagement zone, where in an omni-channel based, all the transactions end-to-end business processes, okay, by connecting them real time with the enterprise data, how an end-to-end business process service can be accomplished for the customers. This kind of scenario, all the low-code application platforms comes into picture, where in an entire decoupled distributed architecture mode, they'll be able to connect in an omni-channel way all the enterprise applications as questioned to ensure customer experience by virtue of maybe workflow aspects, seamless integration with all the systems of record, modern app development scenarios. Gone are the days by which the client side, server side kind of interactions were there on submit of some sort of an input at the client side. The data will go back to the server to get the next step done. From server, the response will be expected, etc. This is an era of reactive web response. Okay. New age tools or platforms called full stack application technologies. These are all has to be considered, where low-code application platform have a solution to leverage all these aspects together. AAML, I just mentioned about predictive analytics scenario. Once data generated at any point in time in the process steps, real-time event correlation as well as subsequent action. How we will be able to do so that to make instant decisions, move on, making customers 100% happy. All these kind of scenarios comes into picture. So in a distributed kind of an architecture of low-code platforms, that omni-channel engagement so on, or the application in question, okay, by virtue of which customer will be serviced, can be arrived at by a set of application scenarios or application modules, which will club in automation zone, okay, to connect the systems of record. So low-code application platforms provide that particular facility. And also one important aspect which comes into picture, which many other platforms or technical old age solutions will not provide, that is the application analytics part of it. At any point in time in customer journey and effective customer journey management, where actually the bottlenecks happen, if at all, the end-to-end business process is not getting completed as per the customer satisfaction. So these kind of application analytics also comes into picture by virtue of using low-code application platforms like OutSystems. See, our experience with low-code application implementation, okay, roughly the value proposition I can suggest to the CXO suite and all the aspiring customers here is roughly with 1/3 of execution time. Otherwise, we will take for an end-to-end implementation of any sort of an application, whether it be a complex application across the FSA segment. It can be done with roughly 1/3 of end-to-end implementation time turnaround. By virtue of that, all these dynamic deployments will be able to do. Nowadays, customers' expectation as well as internal IT's expectation is, internal business expectation is to create applications on the fly. So there comes the need for an application platform which is equally adept in terms of handling these dynamic implementation requirements, basically. So by virtue of our implementation experience, we find low-code application platforms are well suited for 4 buckets of use cases, where customer experience transformation comes into picture, a set of use cases which will ultimately aid in the growth of the organization. All the use cases you can talk about, any product, new product introduction, so on and so forth comes in that. The market share, okay, achievement or the growth of the market share, whichever use cases will be able to do that. The utmost seats at utmost net promoter score, as well as the cost of customer acquisition, which will be lesser. Okay, for all these kind of scenarios, customer experience transformation use cases, low codes are applicable. Then workplace innovation. I just talked about the total experience scenario, the employee experience. Okay, to empower employees. Okay, to have time as well as data to take instant decisions to make customers happy. All those sort of use cases comes in workplace innovation. Process automation. I mentioned about dynamic, complex case management scenarios. Application modernization to protect all the past investments in terms of IT assets, hardware assets, so on and so forth. The proven advantage of low-code platforms, if you ask, okay, roughly speaking, okay, on an average 6 to 10x faster time to market, close to 50+% of build as well as run cost saving, 4x time, again, roughly the reusability aspect, refactoring aspect, if at all you have to extend the application further, and 20 to 40% of the maintain year-on-year, the maintenance cost kind of aspect comes into picture. The enterprise scenarios, by virtue of our implementation experience, we found maximum applicability. The use cases will be B2B and B2C customer engagements across all the omni-channel scenarios. B2E2C means B2C interactions through online. All those scenarios across BFSI. Okay, I cannot point out one particular use case. Most of the use cases are better fit for that. Employee experience apps, which we talked about in terms of assuring EX transformation, and the core apps, okay, whether it is in BFS, okay, loan management, corporate lending, card, risk and compliance, as well as in insurance segment, okay, whether it's claim processing or normal policy administration, all these scenarios, okay, these low-code application platforms are equally applicable. So what we want to convey in this particular scenario is the most architecturally significant or business critical use case as per the organization's requirement can be used as a proof point in terms of adoption of low-code platforms. By virtue of implementing and seeing the whole life cycle, you yourself can get assessed the advantages of a low-code application platform. See, Conneqt's digital low-code application services predominantly revolves around the world's leading low-code application platform OutSystems. Okay. We provide the consulting advisory services as far as the greenfield implementation is concerned, which are the architecturally and business significant use cases which can be picked up and shared for implementation, subsequent ROI-based assessment to be done and proceed with year-on-year implementations, etc. The implementation services, year-on-year AMS services for that comes as a part of that. One point I just want to highlight here is being a new way of implementation, etc., protecting existing investments, so on and so forth. We always suggest to have a center of excellence set up as part of the customer's IT premises, or as an extension of partners like ours premises, so that our umpteen number of architects will be able to leverage their experience in terms of the architectural best practices, as well as guide them on the right kind of implementation journey, so on and so forth. The key capability area, as I mentioned, architecture onwards, implementation and managed services it moves into. The differentiators being a lot of low-code application platforms available in the market. The key is having the right set of architects and leaders who will be able to implement that. An organization having right kind of cross-skilling strategy, the certification, as well as making dynamic skill pool available at any point in time of the customer's dynamic, ever-changing requirements. That's the key for an implementation partner in that scenario. And yeah, from our experience of decades of implementations, we can very well urge that for an OutSystem-based implementation partner, Conneqt Digital's low-code center of excellence can be of immense help. With this backdrop, I would invite Krishna, our solutions head BFSI from OutSystems, to give the final nuances of OutSystems low-code application platform. Krishna.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Sajid, for that introduction and for a very insightful industry overview. Let me take it over from here. Hi, everyone. And today we are going to talk about OutSystems as the digital backbone for banking. I am going to superimpose the use cases. Sajid already talked about engagement layer, automation zone, and a system of records earlier. So connecting back to that, what we have been able to achieve for the leading banks across the world are these kind of use cases, driving these kind of use cases in a really short amount of time with a very high optimization levels, right? Some of the sample use cases that we have done across the banks are about KYC, know your customer kind of applications, asset management kind of applications, the online digital banking or digital experience for customers. Again, Sajid touched about omnichannel experience for customers in banking as well. We've delivered those kind of solutions, as well as core banking processes like accounts management, cards management, as well as sales and marketing applications for these banks, right? So from a relationship management, kind of management perspective. And how OutSystems helps by being a backbone for digital banking is that we are able to connect the existing investments or system of records into new engagements, right? So driving digital as well as driving agility in the business for banks. And going a bit deeper into OutSystems as a platform, think of OutSystems platform is like a Lego, where you are building these applications or assembling these applications using the pre-configured blocks that would give you the ability to create any kind of use cases that you want for the bank. Either it could be from a wealth management perspective, or from a omni-channel banking perspective, or from a mobile banking perspective, etc. So this is how OutSystems helps banks to assemble these applications in a very efficient way. And going back to the point of total experience transformation, OutSystems as a product addresses the CIO's top strategic priorities that we've seen in the market today. That is from a customer experience perspective, there is a CX perspective, as well as workplace innovation, which is nothing but the employee experience perspective, process automation, which is nothing but a digital experience, and application modernization, basically as a backbone to serve across these transformation initiatives. These are some of these use cases that we drive along with these banks for in these respective areas. And you can see what is the kind of benefits that we were able to give back to the banks because of these initiatives. And in line with what Sajid was talking before, we were able to kind of reduce the time to market by about 10x, 6 to 10x basically, and increase the throughput and productivity of developers by around 3 to 10x again, and 40 to 60% overall build cost savings, and 4x more reusability. Reusability is one way of being more agile and reducing the time to market. And about 50 to 75% less refactoring using OutSystems as a platform because of the faster time to market and the higher reusability perspective. And beyond the first project, then typically banks adopt OutSystems as a low-code platform. We've seen typically people start with smaller applications like tactical and employee applications, but then they quickly move on to building complex total transformation applications. Like, they move on to field services applications, like applications specific for tellers, customer service, as well as agent relations. And then we've seen people moving on to create massive B2C applications like online banking or corporate banking or wealth banking kind of applications. And then they move on to create core operations and applications, including CRMs and core banking services. And then they also build a lot of mission critical applications on top of the platform, like, loan origination system, loan management system, cards management system, lending platforms, so on and so forth. And these are some examples. I've taken 2 examples of commercial banking as well as digital banking or wealth management part of it. So these are some of the applications that we've delivered for our customers on top of the platform. Again, if you relate it back to the slide where we talked about OutSystems helps you assemble these applications in a really efficient way. These are some of the examples that we've assembled for leading banks of, across the world. And, those ranges from, right from channel perspective, in the sense, applications that are talking to omni-channel users, applications that are helping you do the due diligence for the customer perspective, applications that helps you with cash management, as well as core banking and sales and marketing. And this is from a commercial banking perspective. And from an investments management perspective, you can see that the business processes that we've helped across the banking customers are, again, from channels, planning, servicing, performance, and sales and marketing. So these are some of the sample applications that we've helped customers build on OutSystems platform. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you.